Can you see me?
No, it's kind of dark.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Oh.
Okay. Yes. Wow, you're so welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're looking awesome. Amazing.
Yeah, with the COVID-19 lockdown, and we're all staying at home, and then we need to stay safe and keep fit.
Wow.
You know?
Yes. Okay, you're welcome. I'm so honored to have you here, and I know our guest will be so eager to hear from you. I've been getting a lot of messages. Oh my God, are you bringing her on? And I was like, yes. So we're going to have a lot of audience. Hello, leading motor leaders. You're welcome. Topso, you're welcome. You're welcome. So today we're going to have so much time learning today, and I want to welcome all our guests, all our audience that are coming and will join us. Okay, so without wasting much of our time, I decided to talk about children with special needs today, because a lot of times this area or this set of people are being ignored. You know, there's no, I don't get a lot of discussions in this area, you know, and especially in this lockdown, you have so many people staying at home. So what is going on with these children? And that is why I really want us to talk about it today. A lot of parents that are involved directly, without the help or assistance of the teachers, of the school owners. I mean, they really need help here. You know, they really need help, counsel, and I believe tonight's session will do justice to that. Thank you so much for coming in again, and I will be reading your profile. Yes, wow, it's a bit lengthy, but I'll try to read up. Okay, so Mrs. Joann Anokwuru, the Principal Consulting Officer for Newland Educational Services Nigeria, a resource teacher with the Vancouver School Board, British Columbia. She has a first and postgraduate degree in education, special needs from the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. Also a master's degree in curriculum and pedagogy, leadership and administration from the University of British Columbia. Presently, she's a doctoral candidate in the Department of Curriculum and Pedagogy at the University of British Columbia. Her research interest focuses on utilizing the narratives of Nigerian young adults with disabilities, their families, and special educators to inform the Nigerian educational system on ways to support inclusive education. She has an advanced diploma professional development in inclusive education from Queen's University, Belfast, a certified testing educational assessor with the Real Training UK, member of the British Society of Psychologists. She's worked as a volunteer for various national and international organizations, such as Autism Associates, Lagos, Special Olympics of Nigeria, Lagos, African Foundation for Elementary Education, Abuja, Dubai Autism Center, Dubai, UAE. She has worked in the capacity of a special needs coordinator in KIP McGrath Educational Center, head of departments and faculty, learning. Learning Support Green Spring School, Lagos. She worked as the head of school, Premier International School for 3 years, and set up the inclusive unit for children with special educational needs. She is a registered member of the National Association of Special Education Teachers, NASET. Presently, Joann is working on three books. Working on Pebbles. It's a narrative of parents on what it's like parenting a child. I think that is something we need. You know, parenting a child or children with disabilities. Wow. Through our eyes, that's the second, narratives of educators around the world sharing their teaching stories. Wow. Teaching one day at a time, my memoir on teaching Those are the 3 books she's working on, and I really want to inspire everyone to get these books as soon as they are out. Joann is happily married to Alex Anokwuru and blessed with 2 lovely children, Asher and Alexandra. Wow, that was worth reading. We are in for. Thank you so much, Joann. You are just, from the very first time I met her, I'm like, who is this woman? She reads too much. She walks too much, Oh my God, we're going to see the benefits of all that today, Thank you so much again. Okay, so let's get to business. Jojo's Lens, you're welcome.
And my friend, okay. I see my friend logged in from London, Titi, my very, very good friend. Yeah.
Oh, what's her name?
Titi. Titi Balogo. Titi Balogo.
Yeah. Titi Balogo from London. You are welcome. You're welcome. Wow, that's great. That's great.
She's my mentor. She's my mentor.
Oh my God! Are you kidding me?
I know. Wow. It's amazing. Wow. Yeah.
Really amazing. Yeah. That's great. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so our first question is, the thing is, we need to really be aware. The area of special education needs is a peculiar and a special area that people need to be aware of. A lot of parents are even living in denial. Some parents do not even know what it means. So my first question today is, how can we even identify children with special needs?
That's a very good question, because that's our real starting point. There are different ways we can identify kids with exceptional needs. These words keep changing all the time, from kids with disabilities, children with special needs, children with exceptional needs, children with additional needs. It's all encompassing, but I would say there are different ways. Sometimes a child is born, from day one, we know this child has some form of disabilities, where the pediatrician is the one who identifies, this child has some, disabilities or whatever. That's one, especially when it's sensorial. When it's sensorial, it's either the person is visually impaired, or, maybe there's a missing limb, or there's a missing hand, or what we call children born blue babies, where you're born and the child is born, and then you notice that the child, it doesn't come out with the right color,
Wow.
That's one aspect. Another one is, as kids tend to grow up, especially kids with learning disabilities, it doesn't show at birth. And sometimes it doesn't show until they get to school, and so the teacher just wonders, what's happening? This child is just off. This child is not able to either maybe write or read or understand what's going on in the class. Sometimes our teachers tend to identify this, and then the next step is that they call on maybe the school principal or their head of department just to identify such child in the class. And then that's one process that goes on. And so that's why it's always good for general educators. I'm a special educator, but it's always good for general educators to understand some of this, but not go out labeling. Because the goal is not labeling these kids or tagging them, but, saying, this child is not just, assessing learning within our classroom. And so we need to call out to someone who will either call out to a clinical psychologist who will conduct an assessment for proper diagnosis, or reach out to the parents to say, this is my observation, and this should be done over a period of time. Not because sometimes some kids don't eat in the morning and they come to school and they're really, really aggravated, and you say, this child has behavioral problem. You just use one day behavior. That's another way. And then sometimes, kids over the years, they start developing, they start growing, because there's some disability you identify over a long period of time, like mental health issues. You might not identify it even in elementary or high school, but as the person grows older. So there are different ways. But you see, that's why we need psychologists, especially in Nigeria, clinical psychologists, educational assessors, to be able to, they're the ones that tell us, give us proper diagnosis. There are lots of kids in this world, globally, who are misdiagnosed. Because you just see something and say, that child has autism, or that child has, for example, a kid with Down syndrome. A kid with Down syndrome, that's very obvious. Kids with Down syndrome, you see it from their facial features or from their bodily features. So that's very obvious. Or someone who is hearing impaired, And I mean, you could have a child after 6 months. You notice the child does not listen to his name or does not turn around. Then even as a mother, you start asking the doctors, why is it that my child does not, move around, or their eyes and all of that. So these are things, we all need. So there are different ways of really, really, identifying kids with disabilities. So it's not just one route. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. There were some things you said that really got my attention. You said that a lot of children are misdiagnosed, and you also mentioned clinical examination, especially in this part of the world where we live in, is it expensive to actually have a diagnosis of a child, So you're noticing some things in a child and you don't really think is normal. You don't want to jump into conclusions, so you really need to examine the child, as you said. Are schools really equipped with that? Do they even have someone that can actually do this diagnosis, or do they have to go to the hospital? We just want to have this information.
So you see, not every school can afford to employ a psychologist. Like you can see, one of my qualifications is educational assessor. I can conduct assessment on the educational level. But, beyond that, you need to see a clinical psychologist, and there are very few, even in the world, there are very few. They are the ones that conduct certain assessment, like the Wechsler, Wechsler for intelligence. You also have the Kaufman. You also have the Woodcock-Johnson for reading. You have the Raven matrices for, ability and achievement. You have the ABAS, that's the behavioral assessment. So some of these tools I can use to conduct assessment, but there's certain levels where it's a clinical psychologist, which I don't have the qualification. And in Nigeria, we have some of them, but, they need to create more awareness for parents to know that they exist. That's the only challenge we have in Nigeria, because parents need to go to these people, not quack people, not everyone who thinks, oh, I just studied one thing, and then you think I can diagnose everyone. I have my limitation. I have my own qualification. So parents should look for, but that's where we need to create more awareness in Nigeria. The challenge we have in Nigeria is lack of awareness, lack of profiles. Who are clinical psychologists, who are pediatricians? We have what we call neurodevelopment pediatricians. A popular person I can tell you offhand is Dr. Efumbo Doseko. She's one doctor I worked with years back in Nigeria. When a child comes to me and the parents are uncertain about the diagnosis, I send them back to her. I send the parents, I say, go to this doctor, let her give you the diagnosis. And then she also had psychologists working with her and all of that. I think she owns a very big hospital in Nigeria, Child Lifeline. There's one in Surulere and there's one in Festac Town. It's for parents to go there. So we need to still create more awareness to parents that they should not just take a diagnosis without getting a proper one from a professional. Professionalism comes in here, Yeah.
Okay. The thing is that we need more people that are the psychologists, the doctors, the medical psychologists, and the medical practitioners that are involved in this should actually start talking, should actually start creating the awareness that, okay, we do this, because I don't hear a lot about them, and as you said, in this part of the world, we need more awareness about these children, because if we don't create awareness, they'll be left in the cold, especially during this lockdown. Can you hear me? Okay. So they'll be left in the cold, and that's not what we want, because every child is important. Every child needs to be involved and put into consideration. Okay.
I know.
Thank you. So given this lockdown, and everyone is resorting, or almost a lot of people are resorting. Okay. It's like there's a lag. I think there is a lag. There's a lag here. There is a lag. Okay, can you hear me now? I think there is a lag.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Can you hear?
I can. Yeah.
My second question is, in this lockdown, okay, when we are trying to integrate online learning, e-learning, okay, how effective is this for children with special needs?
It's an online learning. Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So you see, online learning is an awesome way of knowing things or learning, especially with what's going on now. We can't exempt our kids with special needs away from participating in online learning. The only challenge I will say here is that teachers need to know how to accommodate all. When I say all, every single child in the class. How do you teach that in such a way that even the child on the spectrum is involved, the child with attention deficit is involved. But again, when we talk about online learning or teachers need to incorporate what we call blended learning, where sometimes your lessons can be synchronous or asynchronous. Synchronous is that you get kids to zoom in and make it live, but not all the time. Some of these kids they can't stay on the screen like this for 20 minutes. They're gone. Their attention span is gone. So why don't you have pre-recorded lessons that you can send with these kids? Send pre-recorded lessons to them back home. Send worksheets, colorful worksheets that they can do. You can also make your lesson multimodal, where kids can even send videos back to you. You tell them, can you send a video back to me based on this smart thing we've done, or a video on, write the sentences on maybe why you're at home. Why are we sitting at home? And then the child decides to write 5 or 6 sentences on coronavirus. And you tell the child to read it to me. Send a video of him reading to me. The child, you don't have to be live. Physical education, you can send a video of yourself doing jumping jacks, plank and all of that. Then send it to the child, tell the child to repeat it after you, and then tell the child to also send a video back. So there are different ways of making online learning effective instead of just making it all the time synchronous, live, because we're all zoomed out. The truth be told you, we're all zoomed out.
Attention span. Thank you so much.
Span.
Yes. True. On a normal day, a child that is, will I say, like a normal child, let me put it that way, the everyday child.
Normal?
I'm sorry to say.
Who is normal? Who is normal?
I'm sorry. Okay, so let me rephrase. I'm being careful. Yeah. Okay, but an everyday child. Can I say an everyday child? Okay. An everyday child. We cannot even sit for long. There are so many distractions. So, but children with special needs have a shorter attention span, and it's very important to actually create pre-recorded videos, as you said, and actually create a multimodal communication system where I create a video and send to you and you back. Well done, that's amazing. That's something our teachers and educators should actually imbibe. So, but the parents with these children with special needs, how can they actually help their children? Remember, the parent is the only personal in-person contact right now with the child. The teacher is at the end of wherever he or she is. So how can the parent assist a child with special needs right now? Yeah.
So going back, when we talk about another term we use is we say neurotypical kids. Neurotypical kids. Those are kids neurotypical kids. But the truth be told you, as teachers, we need to constantly support parents. It's a tough call. Even for those of us who have neurotypical kids, I'm constantly, it's amazing how even myself, I'm having a 3-way discussion with my daughter's teacher and supporting my daughter. How much more we just telling the child to just log in. We need to constantly have that conversation with our parents. Let them, I tell my parents, you know what, this activity that I've given your child, they don't have to finish it today. Even if they just come in 1 hour, do this work, give them a break. So what I've done for my parents is I give a schedule for the day. I tell them 10 a.m., log in, do your check-in. Check-in, what I call check-in is their zones of regulation. The child should tell me how they feel. Are you in the green zone? Green zone shows happy, excited, and all of that. Are you in the blue zone? And this conversation is not just with the child. I'm having this conversation. It's a 3-way conversation. Myself, the parent, and the child. So the child knows. So I'm not leaving the parent out of it. I'm also providing immense support to the parent. Because the parent is key. I have my phone here where I'm talking to parents. 5 hours ago, I was actually on the call with some parents, with a parent in Nigeria. So I love the idea that we should not distance ourselves from our parents. Sometimes educators will feel parents are very burdensome. They are very unaccommodating. But please don't forget that this kid stays with us from 9 to 3 or whatever time school closes. But this child is with the parent round the clock. So they need to know that we're supporting them. So with the online thing, send a day, even if it's a daily schedule. 10 o'clock, get Joann. I'm going to use my name here. 10 o'clock, get Joann to log in. Let her tell us about her zones of regulation. 11 o'clock, let Joann do this. And I've sent videos of myself, maybe of the lesson today. Let Joann listen to this lesson. 11 to 12, or 12 to 1 p.m. Let the child have rest, schedule for the child.
You mentioned something. You mentioned schedules. Teachers sending schedules to parents to follow, and you also mentioned a check-in. What does that really mean? You mentioned the green zone, the blue zone. Please, I really want you to break that down. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to send a picture of you so you can share with everyone, So the green zone is check-in. You remember as I came on board this morning, the first thing said, "Hey, Joann, how are you?" That's a check-in. Joann, how are you? You've already, that way I know that you're in connection with me. And then even if your child doesn't know the zones of regulation, you can start that in the class, even for neurotypical kids. I have the green zone is happy zone. The blue zone is either you're excited or you're tired. Then the yellow zone is tiredness. It and all of that. And so you see them. I said, okay, why are you happy? Oh, I'm happy, Joann, because I'm seeing your face. Oh, I'm happy because I get to watch a movie at the end of this. So they tell me, if they're in the red zone, oh, Joann, I'm sad because I can't come to school. Oh, Joann, I'm sad because I'm not playing with my friends. Oh, Joann, I'm sad because I'm just staying at home. So, and then if they say that, they're like, oh, why are you sad? Okay, what can we do to ease the sadness? Or what? Oh, you're happy. Wow. Then you sort of tap into that energy that they bring to you, especially if they're happy or if they're on. But then if they're on the yellow or blue zone, at the end of the day, we also have what is checkout. Checkout is in the same thing, in the same space. What zone are you in after the day's activity? Because sometimes after the day's activity, some of them will go, oh, Joann, you see them, their shoulders. You know? Yeah. So I think that's, but I'll send you a sample of my schedule. I'll send you a sample of the schedule I designed. Yeah, that I sent to parents.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. But, you've actually said the ideal in the terms of parents, teachers should support parents. Now, that's the ideal. But how about in situations where there is no support from the teachers and the parent is just at home with the special needs? What can a parent do? What in the case where there is no support from the school, there is no, in fact, there are some schools that don't even have any plan for online learning. It's that bad. There are some schools that are just shut down and they are waiting for COVID-19 to end and for the government to say, oh, everyone back to school, So parents found in that situation and they are aware that their children are children with special needs. How can they fare at this time?
You know what, Ify? There's a lot of anxiety parenting a child. How much more parenting a child with exceptional needs? The truth be told you, it's even if there's no online learning, I would ask personally for a teacher to reach a parent by phone. Even if you're not doing online learning, 80% of our parents have WhatsApp. Am I right? Even if they don't have WhatsApp, send a text. Hey, Joann, I'm just checking on my students. I would like you could even send a text. Can you, for the first 5 minutes when Joann wakes up in the morning, can you get her to do walk around the house for 5 minutes? That's physical activity, physical exercise, because one thing, most of them they live sedentary life. You can even give the child your phone. Let the child record pictures around and send to me. Engage the child in various lived activities. It doesn't have to be cognitive. It can be psychomotor. It can be social. If the child loves to play puzzles, the parent should give the child different puzzles and record that puzzle and send it to me as a teacher. Then I know the child is engaged. I know the child is engaged. For me, I want to see how engaged the child is. It's not all about, because learning is cognitive, having to learn all the math, English, social studies, science, blah, blah. Learning is also social. Social interaction goes a long way. Then also learning is psychomotor, the movement skills and all of that. Something I could tell parents that I will send a message, you know what, take Joann for a walk. Identify all the colors of cars on the road, if there are cars on the road.
Wow. Okay.
That's learning colors.
That's good.
That's learning colors. And that's seeing, that's also seeing. The child is seeing it. The child is talking, and the child is pointing. If that's one color. Another thing is, let the child count the number of cars or people on the road. That's his numbers. And then the child can say, then you can, if you're teaching, depending on what you're teaching, you can bring that concept to live the experience. It doesn't have to be the planned curriculum. That's the lived curriculum we're talking about. Bringing learning into the lived space.
Wow. That's great.
We all have kids that sometimes, most kids don't come into the classroom as vacuums. They come in with what they've learned from home, what they've learned from their environment. The environment is a big learning space for most of our kids, or for most people we work with.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm just seeing it in a different perspective now. There are subtle means of learning, informal learning. It doesn't have to be the structured curriculum, So a parent that is just left at home without support from the school can actually take the child around, go for a walk, and say, oh, how many trees can you see? What's the type of tree? What kind of tree is that? And those visual learning abilities are gained. Well done. Thank you for that. That's so much insightful. Thank you.
For example, like this coronavirus thing, you're teaching the child doesn't understand why he's at home. You can say, you put on your face mask and say, see, and then you teach them how to sneeze. Because they say sneeze into your elbow. So you see you could even design, the parents you can say, okay, show your child. And the child can even do a video and say, they say, wash your hand for 20 seconds, sing happy birthday twice. Let the child say, even if the child is non-verbal, the child can be doing, twice. And then child goes, hey, wash my hands. And, but you see, we need to, that's why online learning is not all about zooming in on Instagram. Text is there. Text is there. True. And again, if you're passionate, I know I'm going to hurt so many teachers by saying this, but if you're passionate about your child, you know what? If possible, drive down to that child's house. Go and drop 1 or 2 sheets of paper for the child to do. Find yourself. With social distancing in place, don't get me wrong, social distancing, you could tell the parent, you know what, I'm coming down to your place. I want to come and drop 1 or 2 worksheets for your child to do. Call us for the child to do. Just drop it. Then, that means you have that child at heart.
Okay. That's great. That's great. But in a situation where a lot of educators now think that technology has actually replaced the paper, the hard copy work, and a teacher can say, oh, I care about my child, I care about my students, and I give them e-worksheets to practice with, I give them e-worksheets to cut, So what do you have to say? Is it that these e-worksheets, are not as effective as the physical ones?
I won't say that, but how many parents have access to bandwidth? How many parents have access to printing these worksheets? You understand? Even if you send the worksheet by WhatsApp, like what I tell my kids, I send the worksheets to them. I tell them, get a piece of paper and answer your questions on a piece of paper. Don't print out anything. Making life easy, because when you send those e-worksheets, the first thing parents want to do is like, how do I print it out for the kids to write?
Exactly.
Yeah. But we need to explain to the kids that, I'm sending you worksheets on your WhatsApp or whatever, but what you need to do is get a piece of paper at home, get a book, and write it down. So they can be looking at the worksheet on whatever platform you send it, WhatsApp, email or whatever, and they write it.
True.
Again, you can put paper packages, because we cannot do away from print. Not every family. Let's not widen the gap with technology. Let's not widen the gap with technology. Because technology is beautiful. Technology is the in thing. But again, globally, how many kids have access to all of this tech programs we talk about?
Okay. Thank you so much. Joann, for that. Now, my final question. I would like our audience to actually ask their questions. I believe 1 or 2 people have questions to ask. So I'll have just one more question. Thank you so much. If you're just joining us, thank you so much. I've been seeing some people consistently posting comments, key points of this session, and I'm just happy that this session is impacting so many people. Abiola Ajebola, you've been consistently typing. Thank you. Some homes have just a laptop and 5 children. Very true. Thank you so much. I've had a lot of educators and parents, even I'm trying to get this. Okay. Google Docs is amazing. Kids Condell says, yes, most of my parents agree to this. Okay. Or make packets ready and have them pick it up from the school. Okay. Coco and Mommy Nsude says that. Okay. Who else? Okay. Abiola also said, we are all creatures of habit and routine. Children with autism are no different. Okay. That's okay. Setting the kids in a routine or structure is highly pertinent. And the last one, yes, an intervention is not complete without the full involvement of the parents. Awesome. So we can see that our audience they're actually listening. Factual low numbers of kids have access to technology. Yeah, true. So what our guest is saying tonight is that yes, we know that this is the age of technology, but we should actually narrow the gap of the technology divide. Try and send in some worksheets physically to parents who cannot afford technology gadgets, and internet. So that's amazing. Thank you so much. Now the last question is, there is this temptation due to the workload on teachers. Due to the workload on teachers right now, there is this temptation to give a one-size-fits-all approach, to learning right now. So, let me just do something for everybody and send it to the different learning management systems. What do you say about that as regards children with special needs?
So remember earlier in the session, I said that, when a teacher is planning a lesson, you plan your lesson starting with all in mind, starting from concrete, known to unknown. So whatever you're teaching, for example, I want to teach fractions. I don't like maths. I need to say that, but if you're teaching fractions, you in your class, not everyone is on the same playing field. You can bring an orange and say 1 orange is 1. Divide the orange into 2. That's half and half. You've brought something concrete. You've brought something physical. Every child connects with that. You've made learning. You've sort of that's the hook to your learning, to your teaching. Before you now gradually bring in the worksheets.
Yeah.
And you see, whenever you bring a worksheet, have in mind that you start your questions in such a way that I could answer the first 5. Someone else can answer the first 6. Another person can answer the first 20 and send you a message and say, "Oh, Miss Ify, I'm done with my 20 questions. Can I get another worksheet?" But because you know the profile, every teacher should have a profile of all the kids in class.
Profiling, yes. Profile.
Yes. Yeah. Profile of all this. So once you have a profile in your class, you plan your lesson for all.
True.
You plan your lesson for all in such a way that even Joann gets this, you get this, you get this, and at the end of the day, everybody gets it. So even if Joann stops at question 5, I know Joann got it. If Joann cannot even do question 1 to 5, but Joann can draw an orange for me. So you see, when you're planning your lesson, you're planning in such a way that question 1, draw an orange and divide it into 4. Question 2, then question 2 is draw a pizza and divide it into 8. What do you get? 1/8. You can see how you've brought pictorial and figures. Then gradually, as your lesson goes down, boom, you bring in your paper. You bring in no picture, no paper. No picture, but numbers. I could do the first 5 because I have pictures. I'm seeing pictures. I'm seeing pizza. I'm seeing everything. Yeah. After that, I lose. But then, when you're grading me based on the first 5 because Joann can only do the first 5. I'm sure some of you are wondering what happens to the rest of the kids. Don't forget, because of my profile, because of my diagnosis, you knew I am pegged at a question 1 to 5. And then the other kid in the class, a child who is highly gifted or talented, can do the extended, which is question 1 to 50. But everyone, so when you now want to give a report card, you say Joann was able to do the modified version of fractions using pictures. You make sure you give me an anecdote telling me what I can do. And you see, that's why a lot of children lose it in our classrooms, because you're giving a report card based on, you give everyone in class everything. So teachers need to be, again, I still say that as educators, technology has expanded. Life has moved on. The telephone started we still teaching? You know?
True. Thank you. Wow, that was amazing. Wow, amazing. You know, it's I got excited when you mentioned the fact that teachers should actually have a profile for each child, you know, because that was last year. I got into a school when I was talking to them, telling them, look, every child, do you know your children? Do you know every child in this class? Do you have a profile to say, this Sade is like this, she has been like this, recording her experiences, you know, and her progresses. I mean, if we don't even have a profile for each child, how can we measure progress? How can we say this child has actually advanced in learning from this point to this point? So profiling is key. Profiling is very important for every child. Thank you so much. I've learned so much today, and I believe
let me tell you. Let me say one thing. I know teachers again. You know, when I say things, I place myself as an educator. Teachers like, how can I do it? With all the work of teaching, with all the 1 million children in my class, with all the 1 million topics or subjects we do. Profiling doesn't need to be a book. You can just you can just have a page, write the child's name. It could just be in a tabular form. Write the child's name. Is the child an IEP? Yes or no? What is the recommendation? Is there a diagnosis? What are the child's strengths? What are the child's weaknesses? You could just have that in tabular form. You know, so you know when you're planning your lesson. You plan. Joann is an IEP is an individualized educational teacher. Okay. Individualized educational program where some kids have IEPs. You know, so if a child is on an IEP, individualized educational plan, what is it that this child needs to know? Okay. You know, so if a child doesn't have diagnosis, again, if a child has no diagnosis, if a child doesn't have a psycho-educational assessment. Because you need to get that assessment, that report from a psychologist to design an IEP. You can't profile your class. But I saw someone right now in a class of 80 students. How do you profile it? It's impossible. You know what? As a teacher, that's why I said you don't need a big exercise book. Write the names of your 80 kids on one side. What is Joann's strength? You know, you can sit down in class in 20 minutes or 1 hour and know the strengths of your kids. You know, you could say, oh, Joann is a good leader. Oh, wow, if he's well outspoken. Oh, Bimbo is a very shy person. You write all of that down. When you're teaching certain subjects, there are some kids who will raise up their hands all the time. Some of them will raise up their hands because they are the class clown. They just want to say something to make everyone laugh. You see, you have that your tabular form, and you keep notes of it just daily, just things. You don't have to, you know. I mean, I just wish I could I have an exercise book where every day when I go to class in my downtime, I just write little observations about my kids. Why do I do that? My daily observations. So when I'm having my parents' meeting when I'm having a parent meeting, I bring out that book and tell the parents I have been writing this over the past 6 weeks. So my discussion with the parent is not that time. It's an over the week's discussion. And the parents see it. So I will encourage everything, and that's the same thing with children with special needs. You know, sometimes the child comes to school and the child is overly excited. You need to find out what is making that child excited so we can tap into it and say, okay, wow. Maybe the child the night before watched SpongeBob or watched a movie, you know, and then the child comes to school, or while the child was on the road, the child saw something he really loved. And then you tap into that. That's why you see in the checking in, and the child tells you, why are you happy? And the child tells you, why I'm so happy. Boom, that is your hook. That is something to hold on to, you know?
True. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Like, there are actually subtle ways of actually profiling your children, no matter how large the size. and it's not a one-time thing. It's something you do over a space of time, you know. And in a space of 3 months, you know, you've gotten a profile, a very comprehensive profile of your students, if done consistently. Yeah, so that's amazing. That's an amazing. And you know, with what you just said, before we answer most of Uzo's question, she has a question. Can the school help with profiling? I'll get to that now. So, you know, with what you said, okay, why are you happy? What's making you happy? Oh, I'm happy because of this. You know, there is the possibility that due to the observant nature of the teacher, you know, the feedback from the child would help you as a teacher to be better, you know, to frame instruction in such a way that you are relating to the child's needs, you know. You are actually giving each child what they want based on what makes them happy, you know. So it takes a teacher who is observant. I want you to see it as this is a two-way benefit. You know, don't see it as, oh, this is so much work. No, it helps you as a teacher. It makes you a better teacher as well to know why the child is happy. You know, a lot of times you just go to the classroom and you see a lot of some schools, you see a lot of neglect. A child is happy, who cares? A child is sad, who cares? You know. So, but thank you so much. This is very helpful. Uzo is asking, can the school help with profiling? I think you just mentioned that, right?
Yes, the school can. How would I put it? Being a school head back in Abuja then, and being the head of department and faculty back in Nigeria, I constantly supported my teachers in profiling their kids. I supported them, you know, and it's amazing that when I now moved to Canada here for my PhD, I saw that in one of the research. I was like, wow, I've been doing this in Nigeria, and research actually says, you know, I treasure my prof who is doing so well in, you know, working with inclusive education, Dr. Jennifer Cates. You know, kudos to her and to another colleague of mine here, and she's a Dr. Shelley Moore. You know, those are top people on inclusive education. But when I saw that profiling here, I was like, wow, this is something I was already doing back home. So the school, you as a teacher can even bring that idea. Teachers, we have a wealth of idea in us. Don't let it die in you. Because as educators, we're innovators, we're creators. We have a whole wealth of knowledge. Don't let any of that, don't let the environment falter that in any of us, especially in Nigeria. And so even if the school is not helping you, do it, because those kids are in your class. They're not anywhere else. So that when you have that, like as you rightly said, Ify, because when you're planning your teaching and a child comes in and says, oh, Miss Joann, guess what? I'm so upset. Why are you upset? Oh, you know what? I didn't have dinner and I didn't have breakfast. Should you teach that child without trying to get something in that child's stomach? No. Because that child will throw tantrums. That child will disorganize your class for the day. But if a child tells you, I didn't have breakfast, the next thing, that's my antenna will stand up. Do I call home to bring food, or do I get something from the cafeteria for the child to eat? Do I get something from the talk shop for the child to eat? I could even tell the child, okay, eat something, put your head down on the table for the next 10 minutes, or go into the multisensory room and relax. Listen to music for 5 minutes. Eat and listen to music. That alone, because then you can be teaching. That alone, after the child comes out, you will have
so much motivation to learn.
That child, relationship for kids with special needs and even neurotypical kids, what they need from us is connection and relationship.
Connection, relationship, yeah. Thank you so much. You just brought me way back to my teaching days. I used to have one child call me mommy, and I said, no, I'm not your mommy. And she would smile at me and say, mommy. But there was this connection with my kids, and that is the essence of it all. You mentioned something. You said, if you don't give the child what he wants, he or she would blow tantrums. But There are some children that are so emotional. They will keep quiet, but you've lost them for the day. You completely lost them, you know. So as teachers, we should understand that this is the calling. This is not just a profession that you earn a monthly salary. Education, teaching is a calling. You know, you have a role to play in destinies. I keep getting into that line because it's more than just something that you do to earn a living. You are actually framing the minds of our next generation. You know, there are generations represented in one class, you know. And hey, the president of the United States, the president of Nigeria, they all came from a classroom, you know. So if the teachers in that classroom knew that, wow, this guy is going to become the next president, I believe there would have been more, wow, I need to be careful. I need to love this child more. I need to put in my best, you know, so that we can live in a country that is safe. We can live in a country that the citizens would feel loved, you know. So all what you're saying now, there's a long-term effect of these things we do. There's a long-term effect, and I want to say thank you so much. And every teacher listening, every parent listening, there's a huge responsibility, but with togetherness, with cooperation, with communication, we can do it. We can do it. We can achieve the very best. I've learned so much today. I'm a new mother, and I've learned so much, you know. So question and said, yes, the teacher is supposed to create profiles for their children, because the teacher is the one in the class, the teacher is the one that observes the children. So who best should actually create a profile? So Uso, I hope your question has been answered satisfactorily. Do we have any more questions? Just one now. Just one more. Okay.
I said one of my parents signed in. One of my Nigerian parents signed in.
Yes. We're really
thank you.
We are really connecting with Canada. You know why I love technology? Look at what's going on now. You are in Canada, Vancouver, Canada, and I'm here in Lagos, Nigeria, and we're actually doing so much, creating impact. Thank you so much. And that's why I love technology. So please, if you have a question, see this awesome, I call her a knowledge bank. She is here. Use this opportunity. Look, do not allow her go. After now, you pay money. Please, I'm your special. I'm your PA. Please, I'm your PA. I need. Hey, if you want to talk to Joann, talk to me. You know. So please, if you want to, if you have questions to ask, I appeal that you ask now, because we're rounding up. Hey, my in-law is actually online. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Wow.
So I need to share. There's some other apps that we use in technology for kids with special needs.
Oh,
you know?
Great. Let's have it, please. Let's have it.
So there's some. We have Coswell 3000. Coswell KURZWELL. Coswell 3000.
Okay.
Z KURZWELL 3000. Coswell 3000. That's a beautiful app that you can use for kids, for students with attention deficit, reading, challenging, writing. Yes, ADHD. But it's a very Coswell. You also have Dragon. Dragon is text to speech. Dragon is text to speech. Yeah. Text to speech. It actually reads. Yeah, it reads. Is it text to speech or speech to text? You know. Then so Dragon it's a reading app. Yeah, Dragon. Then you also have Jaws. JAWS.
JAWS. Okay.
Like Jaws. Yes, the animal and the sea animal. Jaws is an app used by mostly people who are visually impaired. You know, it actually, so it's speech to text. So Dragon is text to speech. Just is speech to text. You know?
Okay.
Then you also have what we call read and write gold. Read and write gold.
Okay.
So read and write gold is that it reads the text to you. So it reads the text to you. So it takes away that, you know, for most kids with special needs, they have that executive functioning of how to read and process information and write. So it can read to you, you process the information, and then you type your work. So, or you can read to it and it's typing. So when you're typing it, it's reading it back to you. So it's read and write gold. Yeah, so those are various apps. Yeah.
Sorry, you said read and write good like GOOD.
No, gold, GOLD.
Oh, gold. Oh, good. That's why I asked. I'm happy I asked. Gold. Okay.
And then on Microsoft has a very lovely tool called Immersive Reader. Reader.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. I took my kids. My kids fortunately were trained by Microsoft Office here on how to use that tool. We spent a day in their Microsoft Office, and it was phenomenal because it can read it can read to you. It can also divide every word to parts of speech. It can tell you which word is a noun. It can also translate. It can translate whatever you've written into various languages. They have a list of languages you can do. It has a translator, and you also have dictate, where the child can speak to it and is dictating it, but you need to also profile your accent. So these are various tools that our kids can use if we decide we want to go on the technology route. But again,
we want to.
No, but what I'm saying is that I know, but again, let's not bring a big divide, because not all our kids can use any of this. So even our kids that can't use technology, which I know you're tech savvy, you're the tech mama, you know. But even if we still have to do print, not every child, teachers, please, not every child we can present assessment or ways of knowing through multimodal ways. You have speaking, you have videoing, you have role play, you have drawing. I've had kids who have presented most of their assignments through art. But again, I'm sure a lot of teachers are thinking, but this child will do WAEC. This child will do IGCSE. But you know what? It's better for the child to enjoy learning and coming to school over a period of time. If the child needs to do WAEC, fine. If the child doesn't need to do WAEC, there's also ways of living, of being independent life skills. And then the good thing about the CIE, the IGCSE, the British curriculum, they have a section that allows for our kids to write IGCSE exam with so much support. They can get a scribe, they can get a reader, they can get extra time, they can get prompter. You know, my push for Nigeria now is how can WAEC also support other kids with disabilities besides people who are visually impaired?
Exactly. I was going to ask that too. I was going to ask that because that is why we need to create awareness, like you said. You know, this examination body should put to consideration that not every child can actually be assessed the same way. You know, and they should make provisions for children with special needs. Okay, wow, it just went off. So we would like to wrap up. Okay, I hope our speaker will. Yes. Please, can you join us again? Okay. So, Ms. Joann, I would like to add you up again. I would like to add you up so we can round up. Okay.
It's okay.
Yes, I was wondering what happened.
I don't know.
Happened? Okay,
I don't know.
But I made sure that that life was saved. You know, it's saved. It's saved. So what I usually do is I keep it so that anyone that wants to watch the replay can actually watch. Yeah. So let's just do a wrap up here. We can do a wrap up. I want to appreciate you. I want to appreciate all our audience that have been so faithful, you know, listening and getting so much value. I'm so happy. Joann, you have 3 books you are working on, yeah? And I want to shout it on the rooftops that look, anyone that is serious, anyone that wants to increase in knowledge should get your book. I know they are not ready yet, but in 1 minute, please, just 1 minute, say something about your books.
Okay, so the first one, Walking on Pebbles, it's the parents are going to be sharing their narratives of how it is like parenting a child with exceptional needs. You know, my goal for this book, I mean, I got this idea. My goal for this book is, from this book, other parents will see how some parents have navigated the terrain globally for, you know, how they've sort of like walked with their kids, the pain, the sorrow. I mean, let's not take that off. The pain, the sorrow, but still the success story, the ongoing success story. You know, fortunately, my research is actually around narratives now. It's amazing how I interviewed 5 kids I taught 25 years ago, 6 kids I taught 25 years ago.
Wow.
When there was so much stigma around special needs in Nigeria. And it's amazing how these kids, I mean, in all modesty, I worked with them 25 years ago, and listening to them talking and listening to their parents talking, I'm glad those parents stood their ground to give their kids the best. Again, and I'm glad that somewhere along the line they found me, and boom, that was where that connection. So imagine 25 years being in the lives of 6 families. But my kids, those kids now are phenomenal. They are, one of them is married with 3 kids. One of them is doing his PhD in the US. One of them is in Canada now, you know, in school. One of them is trying to, so it's amazing. That's their success story, but nobody will know the journey these parents have gone through. So that's why I want parents to share their journey. That could also give us Nigerian parents that inspiration to hold on, to move forward. Then the one for teachers is, I want educators sharing their journey in classrooms, but these are educators all over the world. So the goal is, at the end of the day, it's like, oh, what's happening in your classroom in Nigeria? What's happening in your classroom in London? You see that juxtaposition, that interwoven thing that, oh, classroom is still the same thing. Kids everywhere.
Like a global perspective, right? Yeah.
Exactly, from educators. And then my memoir is Teaching One Day at a Time. I'm sharing my story of my, so it's a 365-day memoir. So I have the past, I have the future, and I have the, I want to read my poem from my memoir. I'm going to give you a snippet. Yes, 1 minute. So, yeah, but see, this is a book where I'm writing my memoir. It says, don't talk, act. Don't say, show. Don't promise, prove. So I'm writing my memoir in this. So each day I write, but I'm going to quickly read a poem. I've come to a place of awareness, of existentialism, of becoming. I start my story from the present to the future and back to the past. It's all about me. It's about where I'm going. My journey into time is about my becoming to a place of mind. Thank you.
That piece. I'm glad I let you read it. That was amazing. See, look, I'm the first person that will get your book. I'm the first person.
I know.
Nobody will get it from me. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so honored to have you on this show. Thank you. Someone actually said something. Okay, someone said, Coco and Mommy in Sudan said we should read Fish in a Tree. So
I have the book. The book. That's a beautiful book, Fish in a Tree.
Okay, does it have to do with children with special needs?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Coco and Mommy Nsude, for the recommendation. Thank you so much. Thank you, Oluwaki, Kemi, Omuwude. Thank you, Topso. Topso has been with us all through. Thank you so much. Abiola Ojebola. Thank you. Who else?
Titi, my friend.
Okay.
So that's Titi. Titi, that's my Titi, my friend from London. She said, "Nah, lie, I will be the first to get the book."
Who's that?
Titi, my mentor from London. I told him.
Okay, the Topso, right?
Yes,
I'm gonna be the first. Hey. I want to also appreciate them for coming again to the second live. It shows how impactful your session has been. God bless you. I want to say my family appreciates you. The tech savvy teacher community appreciates you. And if you're watching this and you are not on the tech savvy teacher community, please be a part of it. I want to say something before we go. Joann was actually a facilitator in our first ever tech savvy teacher masterclass, and we actually had a Skype. A Skype session with her, and it was amazing. And it has just been higher and higher and higher. Thank you so much, everyone. And God bless. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.